Hey guys, and welcome to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report presented by Angelo DePaola of the Coastal Connection with eXp Realty, the first podcast to bring you the local inshore, offshore, and onshore fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. We have a great report lined out for you guys, but first, let's hear who's making the show possible this week. This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report is brought to you by Great Days Outdoors. Are you looking for that one-of-a-kind Christmas or birthday gift? If so, head on over to greatdaysoutdoors.com and check out the best gifts for outdoorsmen 2021. We've curated a bunch of unique gift ideas to help you find an awesome gift for the outdoorsman on your list. Just head over to greatdaysoutdoors.com/best gifts for outdoorsmen to check it out. And also brought to you by Fishing Chaos. Fishing Chaos recently announced the launch of its new club module and a partnership with National Scouting Report to significantly enhance exposure, recruitment, and scholarship awards for high school anglers. NSR announced last month the addition of fishing to their already successful sports recruiting program. Fishing Chaos invites all high school fishing teams to create a free club on the Fishing Chaos platform. Clubs can hold tournaments within the high school team or invite rival clubs to compete in CPR, catch photo release events, as well as live weigh-in events, as Fishing Chaos supports most any tournament formats. The addition of the new Fishing Chaos Club Management module allows coaches to easily communicate with the team about upcoming events. It automates the tracking of Angler of the Year or Team of the Year standings and collects angler results. Fishing Chaos will play a key role in recruitment by collecting data on tournament finishes. NSR will build angler profiles based on these results and other criteria important to college programs. If you're interested in setting up a free team club or a tournament, please contact Fishing Chaos today at fishingchaos.com or call Jesse Wilson at 256-508-1853. All right, folks, I am your host, Butch Thierry. I am joined today with Captain Richard Rutland, Cold-Blooded Fishing.
Woohoo! I feel like I'm on TV.
Because we kind of are. I know, it's kind of a new feeling. The recording people cannot see us probably, but we are recording live on Facebook today on the Best Fishing Report page. We got Dylan Keine over here with us, Flounder Master.
The Flounder Pounder, baby.
Your title is way too long for me to remember. Go ahead and remind us what you
Yeah, so I'm a PhD student at the University of South Alabama, but I'm also a graduate assistant at the Fisheries Ecology Lab under Dr. Sean Powers. So do a lot of work down there at the Sea Lab, all different kinds of stuff. But my particular project is all about flounder and a little bit of stuff in Alaska, but all doing with flatfish and researching all these flounders here in Alabama.
Yep, and Dylan also is who helps the management side, or I guess we'll call data logging of the tagging program here in Alabama that you partners with the CCA on. So Dylan helps manage all of the data. You guys can't imagine, people like me and Patrick putting out
fisheries studies
anywhere from 250 to 400 or 500 tags a year. We push it all over to Dylan, and he's got to help get us all get all of that information into a database, and then look out for recaptures and send reports out and to the anglers, whatnot, and try to compile all that data. Is not easy. I know now, after having seen the whole process, why it took us so long to get to where we have a tagging program, because it's not just popping tags and fish and writing stuff down in a little notebook like I felt like it is. There's a heck of a lot more that goes into it.
I tell you what, y'all between you and Patrick, you keep me pretty busy. And I was working on some recaptures earlier. We have a lot of people tagging fish now. Some of the smaller guys have been seeing their fish recaptured. I gave 3 new anglers I've never given recapture reports to this morning for fish they tagged, so that was exciting.
Yeah.
Very exciting. Yeah, man, I just wanted to have you guys here today. Captain Richard co-hosts with us a good bit. We've talked so much about flounder since, I don't know, when did you guys start? September?
Yep.
Yeah, maybe October.
September, yeah.
So we talked so much about it October and November. I feel like we had to have a recap,
Yeah.
Had to have a recap of the flounder season.
As far as the fishing goes, we had in just, I guess, success in what we did. Absolutely amazing year from just the numbers of fish, the size of fish. Man, we had all of our acoustic tags put out in I felt like 8 or 10 days worth of fishing. We had all of our acoustic tags put out,
And how many was that?
75.
75, and we struggled to put that many out, year 1 and year 2, and 19 and 20 struggled to put that many out, and we were done halfway through our flounder days, we were done putting out tags, which meant at least having legal size flounder or better. And we lost, man, I feel like we only lost about just a handful of fish this year, where they would, choke the lure and didn't survive the live well process before we tagged them. Did really, really good on that. I think that really went a lot to us using pretty much artificial.
I was just about to say, I'm sure that had a lot to do with it.
100% guarantee.
Yeah.
That was it.
That was kind of the highlight of it all for me, was that we got it all done on artificial bait. We didn't spend hardly any time throwing a cast net every morning or anything like that. We just went, I don't know if it was just the difference of having, lines in the water longer each trip, or if I know there's a heck of a lot more fish around than there was the previous couple of years. So that was really neat. Dylan, what jumped off off the page to you from your study side of it is to what we've seen from previous 2 years to this year?
I mean, this year was just incredible. And the thing that stood out to me was we caught high numbers of flounder in 20 or 30 different locations. I mean, we had 10 fish days everywhere.
How many times do you think that we left the dock and we went and fished virgin water that we had not fished before for flounder?
Oh, a lot.
To the previous 2 years, that's.
And exactly. And then, I mean, it was day one this year. I got on the boat with you, and you're like, we're going to try to get it done on artificial day. I was like, all right, let's do it.
Let's see.
And, he put on a heck of a performance that day. I think he got like 8 or 9 of the 12 that we got that first day. And so I was like, all right, tomorrow again, artificial.
It's on again.
And then artificial. And we caught him on a lot of different types of artificial too.
Mm-hmm.
That was one thing that was really exciting to me. I explored a lot of new baits this year that I had never tried. Got a lot of different things to work.
Even stupid looking lures, right?
Yeah, stupid little. I heard about that. Little Johns.
Oh yeah.
Man, probably the one of the biggest things that stood out to me was that 2 week period in the middle of October where we saw just a massive congregation of fish all along the coast of Dauphin Island and Fort Morgan. And
even over into Orange Beach, and those guys were still smashing them over there too, having 20, 30 number days as well.
And it was cool because it was a lot of really small fish, smaller females and males, and then at the same time you'd have your 20 to 24 inchers in there, 8-pounders and 5-pounders, 6-pounders. We got a lot of 5-6 pound fish this year.
It was unbelievable. I was talking to my buddy Cass who went scouting with me this morning, and I told him I remember that one day we were there on the north side of the island, and we kind of figured up we'd had over on a 5 fish bag we'd had almost 30 pounds on 5 fish. You know what I mean? Like all of our fish that day averaged 5 to 6 pounds just about. It was just
that's wild.
It was wild. And then another thing was then our success in November. We had a few, I think it was 4 or 5 November trips this year, which historically we have not done that well in November. And flounder seemed to be one of the only fish that have a calendar. It's like November 1st gets here, they're switching up what they're doing, they're moving out or whatever. But I think part of that is the recovering fisheries. So the 1-year-olds and maybe even some of the 2-year-olds that aren't really ready to spawn yet will actually stay behind in the rivers and the northern parts of the Mississippi Sound and stuff like that, where you can still locate them, still find them. And then even through December you could probably catch flounder in Dog River, Fowl River and stuff this time of year. We actually saw that on the acoustic data that I just got back from Dog River. Some of the fish that we tagged at right at about 14 inches in 2020 stayed behind in Dog River all winter long. They didn't go super, super high up, but they did stay in the river. And then a couple of those fish were actually recaptured in the late spring and early summer, and those are the ones that got up to 19, 20 inches. So they're just in there feeding crazy.
They grow so fast. It's so cool. One of the really cool things I thought about all that too, kind of going into them, some of the ones hanging around, and part of what I think you're starting to figure out too with the fecundity deal, we've kept a couple of samples through the month of November and a couple of fish, and went and had a couple kill trips where we killed a couple and checked out what the female's ovaries looked like and whatnot. And looks to us like they're spawning inshore too, as well as going offshore. I guess the thought process forever has been, the flounder go offshore and spawn in the wintertime.
Right.
But I think maybe what you're starting to see is maybe they don't all go offshore. Maybe that some of the males are coming in and some of that spawning activity is happening inside, which would be kind of really neat to know,
And why?
It would be groundbreaking if we could see that. And what I have yet to see though is males actually in the rivers and around these bigger females this time of year. And maybe we'll see that at some point. But definitely there was a lot of males that came inshore in October around the island, and met up with all these females, and some of the fish we did sample from the rivers were starting to, be well along on the maturity process. But then again, that one that we got, or you got offshore, 5 miles or so offshore, is a 16-inch fish with like 100-gram ovaries, which is like almost a quarter of a pound.
Yeah. Well, you said it was that fish. The eggs were 10% of the body weight of the fish.
10% of the body weight of the fish, and
So-
and she was, fully developed. Like that fish.
That's what I was going to say.
in
So
the
that
middle,
means that she's reproductively fully developed.
right? But 5 miles is really not that far
No.
offshore compared to what the literature says on these fish. They go all the way out continental shelf, but at the same time, we do know that there is an offshore contingent of the population that's out there. I mean, somebody caught a southern flounder in 900 foot of water the other day.
Yeah, next to a towel fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of our offshore contributors, Adam Peebles, over out of Dustin, who Butch and I fished with before.
Yeah.
Who caught that fish? It happened on his boat. So it's
Very
just
cool.
unbelievable.
Cool fish, man.
Yeah.
And then, Captain King on the Lady Ann saw one swimming on the water a couple weeks ago on the surface out there, big one.
Like a pretty good ways out, right?
Yeah, like 30 miles.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just crazy, those fish. I mean, they can occupy within 60 or 70 miles of the same area within a latitude, like north to south, at the same time.
Yeah, they can be.
They'll be fished north of the causeway.
6 inches of water or 60 miles out. Right?
Yeah, that's crazy. Isn't that wild?
That is wild.
It's such a cool fish. And one thing me and Richard have been one idea we've been bouncing around is this idea that next year that state record, it might be on the table.
Yeah, I feel like it's,
you get
it's getting right.
You get a 27, 28-inch flounder in October, she's gonna be. Close.
Yeah, she'll be heavy.
Yep.
That's good to see, man. It'll be cool to see all this stuff come together. I mean, what's next? I would assume that all this data compilation is for a purpose. I know it's for research and finding out more about the fish.
So next, we've been gathering migration numbers in terms of how many we've been tagging, right? 2 years, we'll have this third year, and then next year will be the fourth. And then, so I've been sampling all these tournaments, and then on my own, hook and line or whatever, anytime I can get dead fish, I take the otoliths so we can see how old they are. And I'm taking the gonads from all those fish from every single month of the year too. So we can see how they're progressing throughout the year. And then with this fecundity deal, you can actually see what the progression is all the way up till the maximum egg production and how many eggs that they can produce. And so we can go back to the migration data that we're collecting, and we can actually break that migration down in terms of age, reproductive status, and come up with a number for what that percentage of the population could reproduce if we get the fecundity thing right. So.
And are you doing chemistry on them too?
Dr. Baker would really like me to see me do that, I think, and Sean probably wants to see that too. And I think it's a great idea as a way to validate the acoustic data.
Tell our listeners what we're talking about when I say chemistry. I know you have some terms about it, but basically you guys can take the otoliths and do something to them to show you the water chemistry of where the fish is inhabited certain parts of their life.
Yeah,
is that right? Is that a good way to explain it?
Yeah, it is. So you can essentially grind the otolith, the ear bone down, and through different layers, just like they lay down their rings through age, they lay down their environment at the same time. And so seawater and freshwater have completely different chemistry signatures, different levels of strontium and barium and stuff like that. So you can run it through this mass spec machine, and you can actually get the different levels of that throughout the life cycle. So you can see at year 1, it was occupying this type of habitat, or year 2, year 3, or whatever. So
that's crazy.
Yeah,
it is.
and
like
if we
sandy
see,
bottom, then mud.
and if you overlay the acoustic data with that, and you see the migration in terms of, and then you have all this. I mean, we're going to have so much data to work with. It's incredible. I mean,
that's super cool.
What's that term? The water chemistry. What do y'all call
microchemistry.
It? Microchemistry.
Yeah, otolith
that's right.
microchemistry.
Yeah, that's right. And I guess I first started hearing about microchemistry from the C Lab back when Marcus Drummond was down at the lab and was doing all of his shark stuff. Of course, we've heard for years that, bull sharks go into freshwater and whatnot. And he was able to kind of look at some specimens and start to see that. And then it started to expand into all these other species that we're looking at too. So, it was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
I could nerd out on this stuff
For sure.
all day
It was
long.
fascinating.
Reed did it with the red drum.
That's
that was
right.
a big part of his thesis. And it was pretty cool. And I was actually chatting with Marcus the other day. He's, I think, going to try to deploy some acoustic tags and some bull sharks
Oh, cool.
in the bay or around Alabama somewhere. So
Yeah.
we'll
fun.
keep track of those too.
Yeah, we always see like a lot of those like little bull pups like in the late summer or whatever, like on the
Up the bay and
you
all
know,
the
up
piers.
and up and down the bay. Some guys back when we had tag and release for or catch and release category for shark
In the rodeo.
in the rodeo, some guys two different teams kind of duked it out, kind of in the same little area, catching bull sharks, in like 3 or 4 foot of water,
That'll be interesting.
They were all little pups, you know what I mean? But, Big Mama's around somewhere.
Oh, yeah. I've heard stories of people casting cast nets off the long docks on the pier and having 2 or 3 of them in their cast net.
Yeah. I'll never forget one year, everybody kind of knows I love eating blue crabs, and I'll go crabbing up on the causeway with some chicken thighs, and I was sitting there one day, man, and I see my dang gum line kind of jerking around over there or whatever. I'm like, go to pull it up, man. And it's like, it's a fish, and I'm like fighting the thing up, and it's a daggum shark grab my chicken thigh,
That's crazy.
It was definitely like a little bull pup, all the way up above, above the battleship up there.
It was lost.
I'll see those sharks show up, like the smaller ones, like in the late summer of fishing topwater or something for trout. Around the island, I was catching like little hammerheads and black tips and all different kinds of stuff.
I always love those little bonnet heads.
That's what I was just about to say. There's a bunch of bonnet heads off the beach and stuff.
Yep.
Those are cool.
Yep.
How many flounder did y'all end up tagging this year?
So we ended up catching.
Hang on, drum roll.
We ended up catching 300.
300
and 19 trips. So we didn't run our last trip because it ended up being bad weather or something. I don't remember what happened, but
so last time we had you on, we talked about you guys were going head to head, and it was getting pretty close.
Yeah, I kept up with him this year, man. It's hard to keep up with Poseidon now.
No
you
doubt.
know what I mean? Like he's
got my trident.
Yep,
no doubt.
But Richard caught 130 of them. I got 110. So he edged me out by about a fish a trip.
Yeah.
So it's undisputed. He won.
Oh, yeah. I got closer than in years past. Usually he's got a big lead on me.
Yeah, I think Dylan's fudging a little bit too.
Could be.
Well, I can't think of anything else that an undisputed champion doesn't have.
Uh-oh.
Oh, man.
You got to do the honors.
What do we got from my buddy?
It does say undisputed on the box, too. I like it.
Oh, let's go. Wow.
Alligator skin.
Look at this.
Man, that's cool. We got to show the camera that.
Got the
belt. Flounder belt.
The belt.
Here you are. Sir.
Oh, man. Hell yeah.
That's cool.
That's cool, man.
That's
Number 1
sweet.
flounder pounder.
I like it. You think we're gonna have some people coming after this thing?
Right.
That's what I'm saying. We're missing here in Alabama is a big flounder tournament in October. When the fishery really gets around to recovering, we need to.
Yep. I figured.
Hey, thank you, sir. I
man,
appreciate
congratulations.
that, man. That's awesome.
I figured, if Bobcat comes through on a slam tournament with a flounder, then we can pass it on to him, or we can pass it around and.
Heck yeah. No, Dylan and I, we joking, but really not joking. It would be really cool if we see the fishery kind of bounce back like what we've seen, is to do kind of like what we call like a Battle of the Grubs style.
You could do a cool format tournament.
Like Creel tournament. Promote conservation, bring them in alive. And they're super easy to keep. I say super easy. They're a very hardy fish, easy to keep alive. Man, I think one day I kept 12 or 15 alive in my life, like the small ones that we gave to Max at the at the fishery.
Hatchery,
at the hatchery, I kept like 12 or 15 kind of smaller size flounder alive in my live well overnight. On the boat in my live well, they stay alive so well. That'd be really neat.
And then we put 48 of them in there that one day. That was just me and you.
I had to have the old back end of the contender.
The live well was like the bottom of the live well was like this thick with flounder all laying on top of each other. We're like kind of having to like push them away so we could get one that wasn't tagged or
That's funny, man. That's a lot of flounder.
Oh, and they're still frisky. Like they can definitely operate on low oxygen levels. That's why they're in 6 inches of water.
Did you tell the story the last time you were on about the one in the tank that was under the?
No, I don't think I've told that story.
No, tell that to our listeners. Will love that.
When we had some preliminary stuff going on before this project ever began, we were working with some flounder that were in a tank with a bunch of sand bottom, and there's 5 of them in there. And I came back to check on them. I could only find 4 of them. I looked everywhere, and I thought my buddy Ed had come in there and stolen one for dinner. But so I ended up poking around in the tank, and this thing was buried like 1.5 feet, 2 foot under the sand. I mean, it wasn't even sticking out at all, and it was lively, very lively.
That's wild.
once I got to them.
Yeah. If you ever wonder where the flounder bite went one time, sometimes there may be a foot
underground.
Under the sand.
Yeah, they might just be waiting. And it's a good place to be if there's any dolphin around.
sure.
You know what I mean?
It could be like that movie Tremors, man, where they kind of come up out of the sand and grab something and go back down.
That's exactly what they do.
They could. I mean, they could operate that way. They'd be
sure.
buried in the sand until they feel something bouncing along, and then
You got to wonder, man. Man, you got to wonder. That's where we need to get that fish cam out for our.
We're gonna do it next year.
Yeah.
We're gonna put a fish cam on a Carolina rig with a finger mullet on there. We're gonna get the bite on footage. I want to see it.
Yeah.
Especially them big ones, man. If you got a lot of finger mullet on there, it's like
hammer down.
Yeah.
It's the only way I can catch them. So.
Uno.
Well, let's end this segment on that one then.
Oh, yeah. All right.
We appreciate you guys. We'll move on from our segment and head on down to Orange Beach, Gulf Shores, Alabama. Let's get our offshore report for the week. We hadn't heard from Captain Dustin Bedgood in a while with Fed Up Charters. What you say, Cap?
How you guys doing?
Doing good, man. Welcome back to the show. I know you never slowed down. You never stopped catching fish. We just you hadn't been able to hear from you in a while. You've been too busy.
Yeah. Trying to stay fishing. Got a lot of family stuff going on. Try to spend as much time I can with my kids when I'm not fishing. So,
amen.
Not a lot of free time.
Man, Dustin, I tell you what, one thing I love about you, man, is we absolutely never know where you're going to be, whether you're going to be wrecking some swordfish or some
or flounder fishing.
Or yeah, I was going to say, is it wrecking some swordfish and big eye tuna? I can't wait to hear about those big eyes that you caught here recently, or pounding flounder, or taking some folks on an inshore, just a regular inshore trip. You know, heck, who knows what you're going to be doing, man. That's neat to be able to stretch your legs. You know, that many miles away, one day to the next. That's really cool. I really admire that about what you do.
Yeah, I enjoy that, and I think it helps me, to better understand the fishing, and I felt like when I spent most of my time inshore fishing, I would just get in a routine, and sometimes I would feel myself getting a little burnout on just going trout fishing and stuff, and being able to do all the different things, I feel like I stay hungry for it every day.
Keeps you on your toes.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth when you said burnout. I definitely like to do a lot of different things. You
have to, because you're fishing for a living. But it's still a living, still a job.
It is. But that's what keeps it fresh for me. Is the next day, what species am I going to chase? Like this time of year, we got Dylan Keine on here with us, who been doing the flounder tagging with. We're flounder tagging one day, going and catching speckled trout and redfish the next day, to tagging cobia, right after that, and then who knows, maybe I'll work an offshore trip in there, right in the mix. So I don't know. That's what keeps me hungry. What keeps it fun and interesting for me. It's always a new challenge, man.
And we're lucky with our fisher. We can do that.
I know.
Like we see all the time. My buddies at Virginia Beach say, "Man, I'm jealous. You catching something other than a cobia or a redfish."
There's so much you can do, and I think there's so much that people don't have any understanding of.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, that's something Slick Lure Joey said to you and I, Dylan, when we went fishing together. He was kind of talking about, you guys don't know what you have right here, as far as the inshore, offshore.
You can go catch 30 species in a day, and it's not that big of a tall order.
I was having that conversation with my friend Ed at the Sea Lab. I think it was just yesterday, because he's from Pennsylvania. He's about to go home. I'm like, "You could do any fishing up there?" He's like, "Yeah, you can only target like 2 or 3 things this time of year." He's like, one of the things I love about this, you could go sheep's head, flounder,
crocodiles,
crocodilian
specks, reds, or you could be out tuna, king mackerel, cobia, redfish. Who knows what you're going to see offshore?
Well, Dustin, tell us a little bit about what you've been targeting lately, man. We've had a beautiful stretch of weather here in the past couple of weeks. Has not been a whole lot of rainfall, a little bit of wind here and there with the front, but it seems like the fronts have been kicking up the wind for a day or two and then kind of settling back out
finally
and getting nice.
Yeah, that's right. And, depending on who the crew is I got that day, sometimes we'll just, we'll push it a little bit and go when it's rough. Honestly, the fish bite better when it's rough.
Always.
A lot of the fish, the tunas, I feel like bite better when it's bumpy. Now, I like to bottom fish when it's nice, but when it's bumpy, I feel like the tunas bite. You don't have to. I don't feel like they get as boat shy of you, because I definitely think they get boat shy because they see a lot of boats.
That's right. I saw a bunch of nice pictures of you with some big eye tuna. That's not a real common common tuna, but we also saw Adam Peoples
Yep.
over in Dustin. He popped a couple of big eyes as well. Y'all are probably fishing the same place.
Yeah,
or
I
same
told
area, but
I was talking to my business partner in the fish house earlier, and I told him, I said, "Did you see those fish that Adam caught?" And he said, "No, I didn't see them." I said, "Well, he said, caught two bigger than the state record," and I've got a pretty good idea of where he was fishing at.
yeah.
Yeah, we saw there's a boat out of Orange Beach that we saw while we were fishing also that they caught 3 blue marlin when we were tuna fishing that day. And then I had some other buddies out there and they had probably like 160-pound yellowfin also. That one big eye that I had, the biggest one, I'm not sure how much he weighed. I just know his core with no head, no guts, and no tail was 104. So it was a pretty good fish.
Yeah.
For sure.
What's the deal with the big eye showing up all of a sudden? Is that a seasonal thing? Are they always kind of here mixed in, or?
I think it's seasonal, but they're here a lot of times. From my understanding of the big eye, they only spend about 10% of their life on the surface. They spend most of their time down deep.
Yeah, it seems like whenever, like you're talking about, it seems like whenever you see a couple pop up in the Gulf, there's 5 or 6 boats in the Gulf pop up that caught 2 or 3 nice ones. They just seem to pop up every now and again.
Yeah, that's neat.
And I think it's definitely something seasonal. They're here more of an abundance. I think now in the summertime, I see some people catch them at night. Over to the west, they seem to catch them more, and then it seems like they'll get on a few rigs or some drill ships and just hang out there for a little while and then go on about their way. But once they're just a different fish, they just act a lot different than those yellowfins. They just don't come to the top, and so you don't have the confidence to be there a lot of times. Where the yellowfin, that was what gives me the confidence. Even if I'm marking them, I'm not catching them. If I see them on top, I'm all about it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't catch them when I see them, but it's the confidence about it. But the big eyes, you very rarely are you ever going to have I ever seen them on top. Now some people may see them, but I just haven't. I did have. We caught one on the troll and we caught one on a jig. Out of the 2 biggest ones we caught, the one we caught on the troll was right at daylight. As soon as I put the troll bait out, we didn't make it. I mean, I put the boat in gear and didn't make it, 100 yards, and he hit it and immediately dumped 600-700 foot of line.
That's the way I like it.
That's a good way to start the day.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned, being around some other boats and some drill ships. Are those tuna kind of showing up on structure? Are they open water bites, or what you guys keying in on?
All the fish that we've seen are around those, or either around rigs or drill ship. Now, I think that I've heard reports from some guys in Venice that they seen some open water tunas on some pogies, but I haven't personally fished over there. I'm going to go fishing tomorrow. Haven't quite made a plan yet, but I plan to tuna fish.
Nice. Whenever you say you caught them trolling, anything in particular? You guys trolling small ballyhoo or slow trolling live baits, or what?
I'm not much of a trolling guy at all, and I really don't even know a lot about trolling. I need to learn more about it. But we were trolling, and I had a little bird, just a little plastic bird.
Love the bird.
And it was just like a little feather behind it, something we used to catch blackfin, and that's what the fish ate.
I believe it.
It ate just a little tiny feather.
That's funny. Like a cedar plug. Everything eats a cedar plug.
Yeah, that's exactly what you took the words out of my mouth. That's
everything from a 10-pound blackfin to a 500-pound blue marlin. Everything eats a dang cedar plug.
Yeah.
That was when I was doing that halibut fishing in Alaska, man. I had these big giant salmon heads that I brought on the boat, on the charter, and I was excited about it because they're supposed to get these big halibut on that. I brought it out there, and the guy, he was like, "Yeah, we'll drop one down." We had one down for about 10 minutes. He's like, "You know what, man? The biggest halibut I've ever caught have been on little tiny herring. Elephants eat peanuts."
That's what I was just about to say.
And so, sure enough, we put a little tiny herring down there, and we got like 100-pound halibut.
That's
crazy.
Cool.
You guys been chasing some swords too, Dustin?
Yeah, we the same trip we left probably an hour after daylight after stopped tuna fishing and ran back up on the edge. I think it was the second. I made one little quick drop, didn't get bit, reeled up, drove around, marked a fish, trolled my bait out, and wasn't down very long at all. Fish hit it one time and was tight. We caught and killed that fish, and then immediately reset, trolled the bait out, but it wouldn't hit bottom. It went slack. we started reeling it up. I drove away trying to get tight on it and just never could. Well, the next thing I know, there's a fish jumping on the surface. But to me personally, it didn't look like a swordfish. It looked more like a white marlin or a blue marlin that grabbed that bait on the way down. I don't know how far out I got the bait when it got bit. So I'm not real sure, but it jumped off. Well, I tied another bait and we turned around and trolled the bait out in the same spot. As soon as it got to the bottom, it went slack and a fish swam it all the way back to the top again.
Golly.
And we lost the fish also.
When you're talking about trolling your bait out, just for our listeners to kind of wrap their brain around that, do you always troll your bait out when you make a drop, or do you use a sacrificial sometimes, or maybe talk to us a little bit about that?
When I first started doing it, I use a sacrifice weight most every time, and I have had that thing tangled any way you can tangle it. I've had it stuck in the mud, everything you can imagine. I've had fish hit it on the way down, whatever. But I kind of just started trolling the baits out, where I just drive my boat, and I have a little, just a routine is what it's really about. I'll set my autopilot, or either I'll drive it and the deckhand will help, and we'll put that bait out, clip the weight on, and I'll start driving faster, and I'll adjust the drag up and down to how I feel like the bait's falling, the speed or whatever. And once I get so many feet of line out, or whatever I feel like is pretty close, I'll spin the boat back around and drive back over the top of it. And most of the time my bait's down and I'm fishing. Now, I still tangle up every once in a while. It happens. And some days with certain currents, I'll tangle up multiple times in a day. I don't really do that. I don't really get tangled up like that as much when I sacrifice weight it, but it just takes me a lot longer to get a bait out. I have to carry extra stuff on the boat, and usually sacrifice weights are nasty. It's just rust and everything else.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just really about time.
It is, and it's my preferred thing. Sometimes when I fish on different boats, we still sacrifice weight just because that's what they're comfortable with. And, and it depends on, like, if I pull up there and somebody says you can only make one drop to catch a fish, I would probably sacrifice weight just because I would know that my bait wasn't tangled.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I troll it out, and I can usually tell when it's tangled too, but I troll it out and it'll fool me, and I'll bring it up and it'll be tangled. And that sucks if you sit there for 30 or 45 minutes with a tangled bait.
Oh man, that's the worst feeling in the world is to reel a tangle up, especially after making a good drop,
drift. You feel good about.
Yeah, especially if you've gotten a few bites on a drift before or something.
I did have a trip. It was a couple of weeks ago. We went sword fishing. We caught a pup, reset, made a drop, and hooked one. That fish wound up being 257. But before we went sword fishing, we stopped at like 4 or 5 rocks. Everywhere we stopped, we caught scamp. We caught those swordfish, left, stopped to hit a couple more rocks, caught scamp off them. It was just a perfect day.
Yeah, that sounds like one of them good Solunar days.
Tasty day.
Yeah, speaking of Solunar, we're probably coming up on a pretty good period here with the moon starting to go out and going to kind of reset. I think we're probably going to have a new moon here the next couple of days, I think.
Yeah, I stay watching the moon, trying to, I really try to study it, as much as I can. But the more you learn about the moon, I guess the more I get confused.
Yeah,
that's how I feel too.
That's how I am with those damn speckled trout, man. Yep. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I start trying to make these correlations with the moon because, and then of course you're watching what everybody else is doing at the same time as far as like how their catches are going in the sword fishing thing, man. It makes no daggum sense. Like they're either on fire or they're not. To me. I'm with you. You start to feel dumber. The smarter you start to feel, they'll definitely prove you wrong.
The more you learn about it, the dumber you feel sometimes. Yeah, I mean,
man.
And then I tell myself, it's just another fish. They got to eat too.
Well, and kind of what I always tell everybody, a bunch of people ask me about Solunar activity with in regards to speckled trout, and I have definitely seen it with my own 2 eyes work when I went on down to Texas back in 2020. I went down to Texas. Our guide that took us was like, oh, we're about to hit a major here, man. And sure enough, like popped it like a 27-inch trout, right when he said we were supposed to be at this spot at this time, and then with the sword fishing thing, you kind of will start to pay attention to that major minor kind of deal. And and it'll work sometimes not. But my answer is what your answer is I don't really have a choice of whether I'm gonna be able to go like when you have a major, minor, high or average or low activity, whatever it is. I'm still going fishing either way.
If it works out, great.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed triple tail and cobia floating more on the major?
Man, no, I don't.
So what are y'all considering the major? A full moon or new moon?
No,
or in
it's just
between?
with these lunar tables, you get like four different time periods when the fish are gonna fish, and I guess deer
too,
deer, all kinds of animals react to this major minor thing, and that's what the lunar will tell you is like it'll give you like a 2 major periods and then two minor periods basically.
And it's based off the moonrise, moonset, and where you're at in the world.
Or over, moon being like overhead or opposing, where it's on the other side of the earth perfectly, to where you are. It's
that's some deep stuff.
Yeah, it makes sense. We live by the sun.
The truth to it is it is a true thing. I mean,
no doubt.
You can wait on those swordfish and other fish, but you start waiting on those fish and you see how they react when that time gets there some days, and it's like, man, I don't know what I've been doing my whole life.
Right. Should have been going this time.
You're just waiting on it to get there, and it gets there and nothing happens.
Yeah. As soon as you think you got it figured out, it flops around on your head.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, man, for the people that haven't listened in a while or haven't heard from you in a while, what kind of boat you running, Dustin?
It's a 33 Freeman. We're still in the same boat. I've got a bay boat I run inshore charters on, just a 24 Blazer. And we've got the fish house. A lot of my fishing time is spent doing that, and we've also got a 33 Freeman for that.
Nice. Well, man, if people want to get up with you and book a charter or check out the fish house, kind of point them in the right direction, how can they get up with you and find out more information?
Yeah, the best way to get up with me is just give me a call at 251-377-7135. If you don't get me, leave me a message. Or you can check me out on my website at fedupcharters.com.
Awesome, man. We appreciate the report, and it's good to hear from you again. We look forward to hearing from you next time.
Yeah, man. Thank y'all.
All right, folks, this is another great segment. Let's take a quick break and check out a few of this week's sponsors. That segment was brought to you by CCA Alabama. A great way to support conservation projects like the Claude Petit Flounder and Speckled Trout Hatchery in the University of South Alabama Cobia Tagging Project is through the purchase of a distinctive CCA Alabama saltwater fishing license plate. You guys head over to Alabama Department of Revenue's distinctive license plate page at revenue.gov to get yours. And also brought to you by the Hunting Exchange. In this day and age, we all know it's a struggle to sell hunting equipment on a large social media platform, and that's where the Hunting Exchange steps in. Hunting Exchange is an app for iOS and Android that gives you a one-stop shop to buy and sell your hunting gear. Whether you're looking to sell your bow, broadheads, technical apparel, stands, saddles, or anything in between, this secure platform allows you to buy and sell gear with confidence. As a buyer, each dollar you spend is insured by PayPal, and as a seller, there are no hidden charges like other platforms, and listing items is also free. Gone are the days of having listings removed from Facebook and worrying about being banned and removed from groups for wanting to sell something as simple as your bow or knives. So head on over to the App Store or Google Play and experience a new hassle-free way to buy and sell hunting gear by downloading the Hunting Exchange app today.
Man, good time going offshore with Captain Dustin, man. I tell you, I know I said it on his segment, man, but I love.
He gets after it now.
I know he is mad at him like I feel like I'm mad at him.
Yep.
It's so cool to see a guy, just switch gears so quickly. So much knowledge of that Gulf of Mexico and the Mobile Bay and Orange Beach area. But talking about another guy who knows a lot about the Mobile Bay area, Mississippi Sound. How about we'll just say no fish or no inshore species are safe from this man.
Except flounder, maybe.
Captain Bobby Abruscato, how you doing, sir?
One of these days, I'm going to learn how to catch those flounder, and you guys aren't going to give me so much crap about that. I'm telling you. One of these days, I'm going to start catching some flounder. I get more grief about flounder.
Hey, well, me and Dylan together are working on getting the population back up and figuring out these jokers scientifically. So maybe their numbers will just keep on skyrocketing, and
then you can't miss them.
They're going to have to really skyrocket for me to start catching them. You know what I'm saying? So,
Bobcat, before you know it, man, you're just going to be able to hang the ice chest over the side of the boat, and they'll jump in, man.
That's what I do.
Yeah. Yes, I tell you what, you guys are young enough to possibly see that happen. I don't know if that will happen in my lifetime. I can tell you that.
Oh, shit.
You let that slick lure sink long enough.
It'll get
that's
put some
right.
slick syrup on there.
Hey, that's thick
That's right.
syrup.
It works. What you been up to, Captain Bobby? Where you been at, and what you been chasing?
Well, I'll tell you, I've been river fishing, just river fishing, both, up in the northern end, up north of the causeway, and then on a couple of the tidal rivers. And, I started to say it's kind of classic for this time of year, but Richard and I talked earlier, before we went on the air, and it's still kind of a little weird, man. It's like, while we're doing this recording, it's December 1st, and, the water temperature is well under 60 degrees, and there's still a lot of fish, still a little bit on the outside. There's still a lot of shrimp up in the river systems, and those should have been gone by now, when the water temperature gets to this. So, I'm giving you a long answer to your question, but the gist of it is I've been kind of following where the fish take me. And I kind of had a wild hair yesterday and took a chance and went, way north, because we've got so much salinity right now, and some of the fish I was catching, down to the south, basically just totally evaporated. And I said they can't be going back out in the bay. And so we went north, and man, it was a bonanza, and hit on them yesterday and again today. And so, but what's odd about it is when we start comparing notes between me and Richard and Patrick, and you start hearing what some of the things they were doing and what I was doing, it's just so odd that, that a lot of the fish are still in some of the places that they were, we kind of spread out like they were, instead of, typically this time of year when it gets this cold, they've dropped off, and gathered up in the river channels, and there's not a lot of shrimp in the rivers, but that's not the case right now. So I hope I don't make it sound like it's bad, because we the last 2 days, before 9 o'clock, we've had triple digit mornings, so it's hard to make that sound bad, but it's just kind of odd that everything's kind of spread out the way it is still, so that's kind of been the deal for me. I did a lot of jig fishing, which I don't get a chance to do. I just don't do it a lot. Spent a lot of time shallow water fishing, which involves top waters and slick lures and popping corks. So this is about the only time of the year that I do a lot of jig fishing. I caught tons of fish yesterday and today on jigs, which I love to do, because again, this is probably the only couple months of the year I get to do it, and fish the river channels, So, but the guys I had today with me, where we were fishing kind of a ledge, and the water was shallow enough, and there were shrimp on the surface that they were catching them on popping corks while I was catching them on jigs. So it's just kind of a weird deal. I think, a real hard freeze is probably going to bring everything into the river channels. But right now it's still, Richard may have mentioned this when we did the session a couple weeks ago with me and Patrick and him. And he mentioned that, he still felt like it was like a month. We're kind of a month late, thinking about the way we're starting in the morning with full body armor on, running up there with beanies and face masks on, and finishing up the day in jeans and in a fishing shirt and still sweating. It still kind of might feel like it's a month early. So, we get a good freeze, and I think a lot of that stuff's going to fall off into those channels and gather up a little bit. Right now, that's been kind of the deal for me.
When you're comparing when all of us are comparing notes, everybody just says, man, it's kind of weird right now, it's and it's funny. It seems like they'll be piled up in one area one day, and then you go back to that area again the next day, and it's kind of a little bit off, but you'll catch them somewhere else, kind of thing. And I was, Bobby, I didn't tell you this, but I was talking to our buddy Joe Richardson this morning, and he was kind of the same way about it. He's an old salt, a guy who's been fishing the system for a zillion years, and he's saying,
let me put it this way. He's one of the last guys left that still makes me feel like a young guy. That's how long he's been doing it. So yeah. When I see Joe, I still feel like a young guy, so when you see him around, you're around fish.
Oh yeah. I was actually telling my buddy Cass this morning when we saw him, I was telling him kind of about the report he was giving me or whatever, and I was like, man, whenever I see old Mr. Joe on the water, I know I'm in the right spot. Just like what you said, and he was kind of saying the same thing, too, about kind of how it's just a little bit weird. Still kind of feels like a transition time right now. I don't know what you've been seeing for water temperatures. Today was my first day back on the water since before Thanksgiving. I went out of town, and I saw anywhere from 58 to 62 degrees is about what I saw water temperature wise. So, but like you said, one more good freeze going to drop it a few more degrees, and it'll kind of maybe
set them right where they're supposed to be.
Just get them more concentrated, get them to fall off the flats, because just hearing what Bobby's saying about still catching them on popping corks, they're still a little bit in shallow water and a little bit in deep water, and another freeze I think will kind of help bunch them up a little bit.
I think one of the other things too is getting that, we get some of this bait out of here. I think one of the things that really starts turning the true wintertime deal on is when you get a lot of this bait, falling out. And I'm just still surprised how many shrimp I'm seeing, around here right now. And that shouldn't really be like that. Typically you'd have that all out of here by now. But again, we go by the calendar, and everything, Mother Nature goes by, the environment, i.e. water temperature and that sort of thing. So, we keep wanting to say, well, it's winter because it's December 1st. Well, it's not to nature, so
right.
We got to pay attention to what's going on with some of that stuff too.
Heck yeah. When you're catching, doing some of this grub fishing you're talking about, you got any kind of color, specific color or pattern that you're that's kind of outdoing another one?
That's great. That's a good question, because I'll tell you something. That was a key. The last 2 days, which is I've caught more fish in the last 2 days so far. This, I'm calling it winter, and we just got through this. When I say it ain't truly winter, I don't think yet. But so far, what I can, what I call, I carry root beer and chartreuse on 2 rods. I'll put root beer on 1 rod, or a couple rods, and chartreuse on a couple other rods. And it was so noticeable today to where this almost seemed a little backwards to me, but we started out just not doing anything at all on jigs. Yesterday I caught everything on chartreuse. Started out today with chartreuse, just assuming they were going to bite that, and they and didn't. Maybe got 1 or 2 bites. Started throwing root beer, and it was amazing. The same jig head weight, same shape lure and everything. When I went to root beer and started catching them before the sun got up good. And it seems to me like that's kind of bass backwards to me, because I would have thought the brighter color would have worked better at low light. Anyway, but started catching them on root beer, and then the sun started clearing some of the trees, and it slowed down a little bit. So I picked up my chartreuse, and it got on that. So, so I carry those 2 colors, and usually I find it's going to be one of those 2. Now, if you make a change, if you're going to jig fish, grub fish, don't make a subtle change. You go from a root beer to a white, or a root beer to a chartreuse. Don't go from a root beer to a smoke or something like that. If you want to make a change, make a big change, is what I always feel like, know. Isn't that kind of what you think? Is like you just want to, you want to really make a big change. A little subtle change to me doesn't normally do it. It's got to be some kind of big change.
Yep, I'm 100% with you. I kind of look at my lure selection, and it's either bright or it's dark. You know what I mean?
Right.
The whole in between game doesn't really matter a whole lot to me, or doesn't really tell me a whole lot. Maybe on that one special day, you know what I mean? Like a little bit of a subtle color change is going to make a difference, but it's either darker or real bright.
Water is so clear right now.
Yep.
That has
and even way up north, it's like that. It's now I think I was looking at the river stages, because I noticed that there was, and Richard, you probably saw this. A lot of that hyacinth was coming down, and I happened to look at the river stages, and I noticed that they dumped at in the Alabama. They dumped a bunch of water very quickly, and I've noticed it happen. I've seen it happen a couple times already this fall, to where you'll see that event happen. I don't know why they do it, but they'll dump it, and you'll have a lot of this. Eventually that makes it down here. They dumped it. Gosh, I'm gonna get my days wrong. I think Monday, either Sunday or Monday. You can look at the river stages, but they dumped it, and that muddied some of that water up on the east side of the Delta. So, when I started seeing that, that was another reason I went to to that brighter color yesterday. And the reason it worked. But today again, it was kind of weird. It was, we got out of the main river flow, and the water was really clear. And even when I say they dumped water, there was not, it didn't muddy the water. It just stained it just a little bit. But when I started seeing that hyacinth coming down, when I was running up before daylight this morning, I started seeing that. I was concerned about that, that dump that they did a few weeks ago.
Yep. I tell you one thing I noticed today. I was kind of on a scout day. Like I said, I hadn't fished since before Thanksgiving. And one thing I like to do on scout days is ride around and look at my electronics. You know what I mean? Instead of
Scan a bunch instead of.
Yeah, just use my electronics to my advantage. Try to get myself around some life. You know what I mean? Want to see something on my bottom machine before I start putting a lot of time into a area. I mean, I covered a real broad area today. You know, like Bobby, you and I were talking, and man, you
did.
I know,
he told me where he went. I went like, wow, man.
Oh,
Did you have to stop and get gas? He ran more today than I do on snapper trips.
So I covered a broad area. And one thing I noticed in several different areas, I was either seeing a thermocline or a salt wedge in my on my bottom machine, where I'd kind of see. And it was funny when you get around these areas, you'd see like a distinct line on my bottom machine, and all the life would be below the line. You know what I mean? And so I don't know, like what you're talking about with the with them dumping some of that water. If that's, I don't know if it's a salinity or
clarity, or
it could be either one, because salt water is obviously, it's much more dense than fresh water, so it's going to show up there just like a thermocline would, but that was something interesting, and that kind of pushed me towards wanting to throw a grub a little bit more too in those areas where I saw that. When to get down there to the bottom.
And on the heels of what you just said too, and we talked about this earlier, was it was amazing how quickly that tide turned and started coming in. So if you look at that wedge of water, that's coming in, that salt water, it's coming down, even though the water on the surface was flowing out. That wedge of water, that wedge of salinity was coming in deep, and so that kind of creates that line right there, that you have to pay attention. If you're good enough to look at, to study your electronics, which I'm not, but if you are, that kind of thing will show up really well for you.
Yep. I've heard Angelo DePaola talk about being able to see underwater currents with his electronics as well. Like I'm talking about way offshore, when he's talking about sword fishing and catching tuna
but it's the same thing. It's the same thing as you're dealing with here. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing. It's going to show up that way, especially if you get a big, real dramatic, I would think anyway, real dramatic change between a fresh and saltwater line like that.
Heck yeah. What are you looking at for the future here on next week or
and
two?
One other thing too on that subject of electronics, I thought that we were just talking about, and I was thinking about it, is if you're doing what Richard was just talking about doing, Richard, what you were just talking about doing, one of the things that I think is the utmost importance to me is learning. If you're not familiar with an area, or even if you are somewhat familiar with an area, is paying attention to where the drop-offs and the ledges of the channel. We talk about these fish dropping off into the river channels and on the ledges and on the flats and that sort of thing. When you're doing, what we were just talking about, if you really want to study that kind of thing with your electronics and looking for bait, pay attention to where those drop-offs are. And no matter what system you're in, whether it be the Delta or Dog River or Fowl River or Magnolia, or wherever you're at, Bottle Battery, that's going to tell you. You don't have to use your electronics to know that if I'm up here and I'm casting over there, I'm casting from 8 feet into 14 feet of water, or vice versa, that sort of thing. You don't have to take the boat over there to do that. If you get finished on a bite, and start to, you're like, wonder why these fish were there, and you pull over and you start to realize there's a little ledge right there. Kind of study that with your bottom machine. The electronics that we have right now kind of show you some of these contours, but man, when you start learning where those drop-offs are and these, points are, and you don't have to take your boat and put it over the fish to understand that. In other words, you can start fishing it before you start, riding over it. It's amazing how much, better you'll do fishing, So take some time when the fish is slower, you get done fishing, or if you're just boat ride, and just study that machine and just kind of get some, geographical points, like from this point to that point right there, I know it drops off, and start understanding that, because it's particularly this time of year when we're getting into this winter pattern, these fish are going to start relating to those channels and the ledges. And if you know where they are, without having to ride over them, it's going to help you tremendously to get better at catching those fish.
Yep, that's one thing that I took note from you a real long time ago. Remember, I'll never forget you saying, "Yeah, I really don't. I've got a great bottom machine and everything on my boat, but when I'm fishing down here around Dolphin Island, I know what the water depth is to about 6 inches. Are your words you told me. And that's just paying attention to what you're doing when you're doing it. And I've said that 100 times on this show. And when you
gives you an edge, gives you that X-ray vision. You can see what's over there.
It does, and you start to kind of just go through those motions, and it starts to become second nature. And okay, well, I'm right here, like we're just talking about the Delta. We say here, I'm right here at Crab Creek, and it's going to go from about 20 foot to about 12 foot in this little stretch right here, and here's a drop and whatnot, and it really kind of starts to make sense why a fish is sitting where he's sitting, and then you can just explode that to 1,000 different little areas when there's a bunch of fish around, And
you talk about not running over the fish. I noticed that a lot in our smaller tidal rivers. Yep. I mean, you can be on a spot and a big old boat will run through there, not knowing that he's messing up your bite. It'll shut it down for 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. And I'll tell you something, that was real. We had that today. Butch, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'll tell you something, we had that happen today. And the people that went by us today weren't those big boats like you're talking about. These were guys that were real courteous, that actually slowed down and idled best they could as far away from us. But I think in certain areas, it affects it a lot more than other areas. I think fish get accustomed to this ambient noise, and you get a place like in the Delta where we were today, and there's certain places where there's not that constant boat traffic to where, I mean, they would literally idle 50 yards from us, and there would be this, like you just said, 5-10 minute lull, and you go like, well, it's over.
But it's not.
We hung in there just for a few more minutes, and it was right back on. The fish didn't go anywhere. You take a place like Dog River, for example, or maybe even not up, way up Foul River, but down Foul River where you're getting a lot of boat traffic, it doesn't affect it quite as much, or West Foul River, for example, you know what I'm saying, where they maybe get a little bit more accustomed to it, but we noticed that really, especially where we're today, because it is like super quiet, very little boat traffic normally up where we were. And it would shut it down for 5-10 minutes. And sometimes when it came back, it was even better, so, real important to pay attention to that. And, kind of getting back to our point is, if you can get to an area knowing already where the ledge is, or where the drop off, or where the channel is, or where the flat is, depending on what you're going to fish, without having to take your big motor up there and do that, you're game ahead. You're way ahead. Miles ahead of anybody being able to do that, because you're already on them without having to ride all over that.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah,
and it's a simple process, like we were just talking about. If you're out, if you get done fishing and you're just kind of idling back to the dock, or you got the family out boat riding, even if you don't have a rod and reel on the boat, pay attention where those ledges are, man. Pay attention where the drop-offs are, not just during the winter, but like during the summer. Find out where the bars are and the tips of the bars. If you get done fishing, you catch some fish, and you go like, I wonder why they were there, and you idle over there. Or another good thing, like this time of year when you get these like we're coming up with this new moon right now, we're going to get these mega low tides. And you're riding down a river channel, and you look over at a bar that normally would have water over it, and you go like, I wonder why. That explains why I always caught fish there. You know what I'm saying? It's dry right now, but during the summer I always caught fish out there on that little spot right there, and that's why. So sometimes things like that will just tell you why they're there. So just pay attention to that kind of stuff. Even when you're not fishing, you'll learn a whole lot.
Yeah, I really like what you said about knowing your water and knowing what types of areas you're fishing before you even get to the actual spot. I've been over here taking notes. I feel like I got like 20 pages already just from listening to this segment. I mean, this has been great material. I'm definitely going to use some of this stuff myself.
Great tips for sure, Captain Bobby. Folks want to get up with you and book a trip. What's the best way to get in contact with you?
A-Team Fishing has got all of our contact information on it, and it'll you can get in touch with us via the web like that, and there's or you can just call us the old-fashioned way, the way that I still do it is pick up the phone. There's a phone number on there, and there's a thing called Instagram. I'm on it now. I don't know how I got on it, but anyway, we're on Instagram at A-Team Fishing and Facebook at A-Team Fishing. And the people that know how to take care of those kind of things for me have put me on there. And there's some really cool videos up there and some pictures and that sort of thing. So you can kind of catch us there if you're sitting around and want to check some of that out. And
keep it up with the Bobcat. That's what it ought to be called.
Heck yeah.
Huh?
Keeping up with the Bobcat. That'll be your channel.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Busy
Needs
with
to be his
Bobcat.
handle.
I haven't been able to do it, but it's been done.
Well, that's all that really matters.
That's right.
All right, Cat. We appreciate the report, man. That's some great tips. We look forward to hearing from you next time. Keep whacking them.
All right, thanks, man. Thanks, y'all. Thanks for having me on.
All right, folks, that's another awesome report, and it was brought to you by Fish Bites. Are you tired of stinking baits? Fish Bites don't stink or leave a stink on hands and everything else. They don't require bait buckets or ice to stay fresh while you fish. Fish Bites can withstand numbers of bait stealers for many, many minutes. Won't come off the hook during a hard cast or in rough waters. Check out the full line of scented saltwater and freshwater baits and tackle at fishbites.com. And also brought to you by Photonis Defense. Photonis Defense is proud to offer the PD Pro line of night vision systems. The PD Pro series is the world's smallest and lightest night vision goggles built around the Photonis 16mm filmless 4G image intensifier tubes and their hybrid filmless 18mm image intensifier tubes. The ultralight, ultra-compact night vision systems deliver cleanest image, best resolution, smallest, most transparent halo, and best overall performance and function of any night vision system available. The PD Pro line consists of the PD Pro M 16mm monocular, the PD Pro B 16mm binocular, and the PD Pro Q panoramic night vision system. Photonis Defense, masters of darkness. All right, gentlemen, let's round this thing out with an onshore/nearshore/inshore report. Let's head on down to Sam's Bait and Tackle, Orange Beach, Alabama. Let's chat with Captain Dusty Hayes. What'd you say, Cap?
Oh, not much, man. Just got off the water a few hours ago. Just got to the house and started a little fire. About to throw some steaks on the grill. And
Reminds me I need to take mine out of the fridge.
How many slashes can we throw in there for
As many as we want.
For Dusty, man? Dusty sounds like he's been around the daggone world, huh?
Master of many crafts.
that's every day, man.
All right.
Every day.
Well, where do you want to start first, man? You want to go by nature? You loving your old maybe Beach Bum Junior or something like that? Being on the beach, I'm sure you've been on the beach and some in the backwaters, man. It's just a great time of the year to be on the water. What's going on? Where you want to start first?
There's tons going on in this area. The surf bite has been pretty good, decent whiting bite, guys picking up redfish, and also people picking up pompano. We're in that time of year where, ghost shrimp starts to become king. The standard pompano rig and, piece of shrimp doesn't always do it. It will some days, but some days you got to really downsize on your tackle. And I know I preach that all the time, going light. But, just for instance, last week, or a few days ago, there's people like, oh yeah, there's just nothing going on in the surf right now. And I went out there, and I'm not trying to toot my horn or anything, but we'd had not a great day, but we caught a good number of whiting and croakers on light, 10-pound fluorocarbon rigs with size 6 circle hooks and, little pieces of shrimp. And we had action, all day. Not that I was, anywhere better or using a better bait, but just really downsizing, leader and hook size. We didn't catch any huge fish, nothing like that. But just sometimes just to get those bites, you got to really downsize. There's guys picking up redfish for sure on cut mullet, cut whiting, and just pieces of shrimp on pompano rigs. And then there's still the scraggler pompano. There's definitely been some pompano on the East Jetty too on our incoming tides. But it's been pretty steady along the beach. It's just one of those things you got to stay at it. The next few days, you have that light east wind, which is good. It keeps that water clean. Great for a pompano bite. There's really north wind, calm, super calm days. It gets a little tough on the beach. You'll have an early and late bite. As long as the incoming tide is in your favor, which is most of the day right now, so that's a good thing. That will help you out along the beach. That incoming tide makes a huge difference this time of year. I prefer it all year when you're surf fishing, but incoming, in the cooler months does make a big difference to me. Like I said, having that east wind, that clear water, help you maybe pick up some pompano bites. But the biggest thing I could recommend is, try various baits, including ghost shrimp. Don't be afraid to go catch ghost shrimp, and also, downsize your leader, and even get away from the floats. I love floats on a pompano rig, but there's plenty of days where that's not the ticket. You really just go down to nothing but a hook and, your bait, maybe a bead. But if that water's really clear, and as that water temperature drops, that water clears even more, and those fish, they really get spooky and finicky on what they're eating. They're not just chowing down on everything sometimes in the surf, and they're really going to size up your bait, so you got to trick them.
Yep. Do you think that's possibly a result of of us having a bunch, like we've literally had a zillion bluebird days in a row in our area where there's not a cloud in the sky. It's just, and then it's not a whole lot of wind, nothing to break up the shadows and stuff underneath the water and whatnot. It's just been mirror for me anyway, up in Mobile Bay. It's been a lot of mirror slick calm days and not a lot of wind and whatnot with a lot of sunlight. I think that what you're talking about, stepping down your tackle, makes a ton of sense to me.
Absolutely. Yesterday, I threw a fly on a black drum, and I mean that was 16-pound fluorocarbon leader, and you'd have thought that crab was out to kill him on the way down because I threw it way past some super soft landing, and as soon as he got his vision, I mean where he could see it, I mean he ran from it like it was chasing him. I mean, and that little crab wasn't the size of a quarter, and he'd have thought you'd seen a ghost. I mean he was out of there. Never saw me. I don't know what it was, but just he knew something wasn't right. I guess the crabs falling out of the sky isn't a normal thing this time of year. But
well, it should be.
Like I said, I think it's like you said, there's just so much clear water, so many calm days. This fall we haven't had that normal. We usually get a lot of thunderstorms and just nasty, crappy days. It's really been a beautiful fall. There's been a lot of windy days, but here and there. But overall we've had not a lot of rain. The water's cleared up everywhere. I mean, even intercoastal and Gulf Shores, I mean, the water's green, super clear. And the sheepshead biting there is good right now, but it's a little tougher than it normally is, not because the fish aren't there, we're still catching them, but having to downsize on tackle with the sheepshead and stuff too, because, that water's not that just dingy bay mud color. It's, actually green, clear water where, a fish in its element, they can see, a foot or two, which is more than what they normally can. Sometimes they can't see, but barely just in front of their face. So just in general, I mean, downsizing everywhere, even in the creeks. A lot of our trout are moving up in the creeks here. And, they last week before, they were really in the mouths of the creeks and the rivers. And as it's kind of cold, got colder over here, everything's really condensed further up in the rivers. And, I've noticed like the other day, I was just throwing a little small swim bait, my normal setup, and I wasn't getting touched. I downsized on the leader and ended up getting a few bites. And, just because the water's so clear. And that's another thing too. Like I was throwing a pearl colored swim bait, really small one, but it's just such a hot color as opposed to something a little more natural, like a brown or a gray. I just felt like it was a little too much for them. In a lot of the creeks over here in the Orange Beach area, the Wolf Bay area, they get pressured a lot. A lot of inshore guides fishing them. They're not huge rivers. They're one or two boats, and then they're kind of fished out for a few hours. And so they get a lot of pressure. So you really have to go with super light stuff and super natural presentations to get those bites.
Those deadgum guides are something else, aren't they? They just think they own the water, huh?
There's plenty of them around here. You can walk on them over here.
So kind of transitioning your report into that. What kind of pattern are you starting to have success on in your fishing? What you're talking about, your creeks and rivers and stuff over in that area. What you throwing grubs or popping corks, suspending baits, twitch baits, all the above?
Yes. So my two favorite things, like if you're going to fish a live bait, which it's not my thing, but if you were to, I do like free lining a shrimp in those creeks and those deep bends. I usually use like a size, 4 or 6 Kale and light, 10, 12 pound fluorocarbon, maybe a split shot depending on the depth. But for the most part, I'm going to be using a small paddle tail. I love the Owner darter jig heads, and I use the 16th and the 8th ounce jig heads. Two of my favorites are definitely going to be the Z-Man Slim Swims for durability, and then the Rhythm Wave 2.8s, and two really, really good lures that are just so versatile. I use them for everything from, baby tarpon to redfish to bass in the rivers and creeks to trout in the wintertime and trout all year, especially on dock lights and stuff. But they're just killer lures in general, a variety of colors, but it's just a small, natural bait fish pattern. It's not too big. I feel like a lot of people are listed on the same 3.5 to 4 inch matrix shad and stuff like that. And they just look so, so similar all the time. So that really small bait fish pattern, it's just something that's just so different to me. It always gets bites. And sometimes you'll find schools of small trout and you'll be able to catch a big number of fish. And you may have to upsize baits to get into those bigger fish on certain days. But just looking for schools of trout up in the creeks right now, locating them and just catching fish, those small 2.5 to 3 inch swim baits are really a big key to me. I do throw jerk baits. There's a few different ones I'll throw. this time of year that pick up, some bites. One of my favorites is going to be the DePaola ripstop. A few different colors there, like just silver. It's a black back, silver side. I think they call it the Houdini, which is like a tan color. And then the Goby is similar. It's like a tan with some yellow on it. Just real natural colors, and they do real well for me. And on the warmer days, you'll actually get some really good topwater bites up in those creeks. Fish when it heats up, and day like today where it's cold in the wind, but up in the creek, you're out of that wind, that sun's heating up, that dirtier water up there. Those fish will move up on those flats and feed on the shallower corners of the rivers, and you'll obviously have some decent midday topwater bites. And as far as that goes, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Zara spooks, and they have the spook boyo out, which is a shorter, heavier spook, and that's kind of what I kind of made my go-to the last part of the summer and this fall. It's just a small, compact topwater, walks really easy. You don't have to be a professional bass angler to work this topwater plug. It's just a little twitch of the rod, and it's walking very well.
Man, you just described yourself, I think, in a lure right there.
Right.
He say short, stout boyo. Is that what he said? Huh? That's Dusty right there, huh?
Yeah. It's just it's like
angler.
the Super Spook Junior, but it's just a little shorter, and it's still 3/8 of an ounce. So it still
got the knocker
casts
in it?
very, very well, but it gives you a little smaller, compact, presentation. So they're a cool little lure for sure. But yeah, man, it's just been a lot going on over here. The sheepshead bites really picked up, around the bridge and the jetties, and there's plenty of them in the intercoastal and along a bunch of the docks along the bay. You could even go, you get a nice day like today and get out of the wind, and you can, sight fish sheepshead up on the shallower docks and, pit shrimp at them and stuff. And there's plenty of people that do that this time of year. It's something that you kind of get away from the beaten stuff, like the bridge, the Perdido Pass Bridge just gets pounded all day, every day. And so you can get away from that. And if you get a calm day with less wind, the redfish have been running up and down the beach like mad. It seems to be a little slower the last day or two. But all last week and the week before, it was really, really good. I don't think they're necessarily done for the year. You should have a few more windows to go get them really good. But their main thing is looking for birds, looking for bait, dolphins, seagulls, pelicans, all that stuff. Just look for activity. Hang out in that general area. You can troll through there, but just have, bucktail jigs, various plastics, on 3/4 to 1/2 ounce jig heads ready to go. And if you find them, all you got to do is just throw in there, and you really don't have to do anything special, and you'll hook some fish. But the redfish have just been out there in acres and acres, right outside Perdido Pass. A lot of the inshore guides have been, chasing them all last week and this past weekend. All 4 hours of their trip. Tons of success doing that. And it's big fish to pull on. And
yeah, that's a good time right there, man. It's
yeah,
as much fun
it's
as you
just
can have
hard
with
to
your
beat,
clothes
for
on,
sure.
for sure.
We went out today looking for them and spent a couple hours chasing birds and bait, and never saw any redfish. And we ended up on some close reefs, in about 25 foot of water, just using, soft plastics and little pompano jigs with tipplet fish bites and stuff, and catching some decent trigger fish and red snapper, and caught a few on the fly. And so just there's a lot going on. This time of year is some of my favorite because, the boat traffic's down so much and fish are really condensed into certain areas, and you can really just have a good time this time of year. I really love November, December.
Dusty, this is Dylan here. I'm actually headed down to Jupiter, Florida over the weekend, and I got a charter down there. I'm going to look to target some snook, and I'm curious if you have hit on any snook over in your area. You talked about targeting a lot of different species this time of year, and someone Richard knows actually caught a snook in Hallsmill Creek a couple weeks ago.
Dog River.
Oh, the old dirty dog. You never know what she's going to give up, huh?
We've seen a bunch around here.
So I'm really, really curious. Have you hit on any snook over there, or you heard anybody that has? Or?
I haven't personally, but I know 4 people that have within the last month and a half, various sizes. And so, yeah, it's been pretty cool for sure.
I mean, it's been cool to see the different kind of fish. I know we talked about a couple times about the bonefish and the snook. I mean, we may have a snook fishery in 10 years.
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing, along with the permit, I know we've talked about it before,
Yep.
is, just recognition of the species and making sure people are aware of that they're catching. Obviously killing 1 or 2 here or there, isn't a big deal, but I don't want to sound like a hippie. But, a lot of people, fishing mentality, they're like, oh, I caught that. That's cool. We can keep it. Oh, it's not regulated. I'm going to keep it. With the snook showing up like they are everywhere, I know they've been caught various places like the lagoon and a bunch of different creeks, like Stephen Franklin, who I fished with today. He caught one a few days ago in a paddle tail in a creek with some trout. And I don't know where he was. He wouldn't tell me, which is, I don't blame him. I know Chris and Austin Luke got one on the fly. a few weeks ago, or well, it was probably a little over a month ago now, up in another creek. And this was, this was way before trout up in the creek time. It was still a little warmer then. I've seen quite a few in the lagoon caught on the fly by my buddy Sam Sumlin. I know he's got one or two over there a few weeks ago. And, somebody posted a picture on a page not too long ago. I don't know if it was one of the Pensacola fishing pages or Alabama surf group or whatever, but I mean, it was a decent sized fish. It's hard to tell, obviously, from a picture of a fish in the water, but it was just sitting there floating at the NAS docks. I mean, that fish to me looked 30 plus inches. I mean, a massive snook.
I was going to ask, what type of size you're talking about in terms of the snook.
Yeah, most of the ones I've seen caught, I mean, they're going to be like the 12-inch range. I mean, they're seem to be. I've seen a few smaller ones, like what I would say like fingerlings. I mean, they're 4, 5, 6 inches.
Yeah, like bait fish in a cast
net. A lot of
net.
the ones that I've seen caught too on rod and reel, not in cast net or on a tiny little fly, have been, I would say, like 10 to 12 inches. So I haven't seen any like crazy big ones caught. There's been stories for years of one here, one there. But I mean, all of a sudden in the past, few months, it's like, fish after fish after fish. So that number is definitely picking up. And so same thing with the permit and the bonefish and all that. I think it's just something that maybe our future has to hold. And the main thing to me is just, making sure people know what species are catching. And something like those snook, I mean, if we leave them alone and let them do their thing, I mean, they might establish an actual population here. We might be able to catch them here in 10 years, where you can go out and target snook, and that would be awesome.
Yeah, that's right. Something Dylan and I kind of ran into while we were flounder fishing was caught what we think were a couple of tropical flounder. You want to talk about that a little bit, Dylan?
Yeah, we can. I'm not 100% sure about this yet, but more than 50% sure that some of these were tropical flounder, and they're very, very similar to a Gulf flounder. They're in the same genus, the Paralichthys, the same one that the fluke over in the Atlantic is. The Gulf and the southern flounder are all in the same genus, and then the same one as this tropical flounder, but it's got 5 very distinct spots on it instead of the 3 that you would normally see on a
Gulf.
And on the Gulf. And I saw my first one at the Fanatics tournament in 2019 from a fish, a pretty big flounder, 19 inches, that somebody brought in from Pensacola. And I was like, that just doesn't look right, And I did all the different scientific things you could do on it, and it didn't fall in the range of a Gulf flounder. It fell into the range of the tropical flounder. So I, started keeping an eye out for them, and sure enough, this year, and it was when we were catching these couple Gulf flounder, we would hit on these ones that would have the 5 spots, and then there's just the other few slight differences.
Yeah,
in
one
them,
thing I noticed, like on that subject with the tropical flounder, it seemed like I don't know what you call their outer fins, that are
the dorsal rays and stuff.
Yeah, they came up much farther up towards their head to me.
Yeah,
when I was looking
very
at
frilly
them,
around the head area.
All the way up to their head.
They almost kind of look like the soles that you catch in the
yeah,
that's what I was just about
right.
to say.
Yeah, and the kind of the thing I was thinking about is kind of, I don't know. I mean, we can get on here and play politics if we want about global warming or something, But I mean, I just feel like we're maybe either seeing a slight change, maybe, or you're seeing just species sneak up here for a couple of years and then they sneak back down, or however it is. So who knows what really is going on there? But it's kind of cool that we're
getting new species.
Yeah,
well, we've seen it with the mangrove snapper have really established themselves here. One of our graduate students doing age and growth on them, and he's seen them up to 28 years old.
Wow,
oh, wow.
There's big mangroves here, and he's got all this abundant stuff, and you can see it. It's pretty neat over time, and it sounds like we need to get a snook tagging
here,
program.
Way up in the back of these creeks. I'm talking about with the largemouth and the panfish. I mean, there's juvenile mangrove snapper. I'm not talking about keepers, but 4, 5, 6 inch mangroves up in these creeks, not just in the wintertime, but all year. So they really grow up here, and that's another thing we've noticed is just like so many other species that they use these inshore estuaries, these freshwater creeks, spring-fed creeks to really grow up. And same thing with snook and all that stuff. I caught a permit in Soldiers Creek, not way up in the headwaters, but in Soldiers Creek, which is a ways up Perdido Bay, about 3 years ago in the summertime off a dock. So I mean, there's stuff just establishing there. And me and Chris were talking about it the other day. You look around the islands and there's so much more grass growing around Robinson Island and Walk Around and all that, even though there's boats just trampling over it all day, every day, because any given day in the summer, there's 300 boats tied up around the island, people partying and stuff. but yet the grasses is thriving. It's more and more and more every year. And so, they're saying it's the coastal resource guys with Orange Beach are saying that, that water is just staying warmer and there's more grass growing. And I think another thing too that may or may not help, this is just a personal theory of mine. It could be this total, crap. But I think, a year like this year where we haven't had a ton of rain, I think it allows, you don't have all that huge push of water coming out of Mobile Bay and
Definitely agree.
pushing stuff offshore. I think it's maybe allowing stuff to get up in the bays.
Much
it
more
might be something
inviting
that's natural over
ecosystem.
time. You just got to have the right weather year, weather occurrence to allow, those fish to get inside there and grow up.
Well, Dusty, that's a great report. Do you want to tell us anything that's going on up and coming down in Orange Beach at Sam's and or how to get a hold of you for to do a trip?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually have a lot of end of the year sales going on. I won't go into too much detail. Y'all can follow us on Instagram at Sam's Tackle OB or just hit up me and Chris on Facebook or anything like that. A lot of really good rods on sale. Temple Fork and Abu and pin conflicts we're blowing out for super cheap. All kinds of good stuff. And some Yozuri lures. But if you want to get in touch with me, my phone number is 678-897-0167, or you can just come see us at the store.
Awesome, man. We appreciate the report. That's some great tips, a great report, and we look forward to hearing from you next time.
All right, guys.
All right, guys, that wraps up another great segment. Y'all take a minute to check out a few of this week's sponsors. That segment was brought to you by Killer Doc. As anglers, we put a lot of time, money, and passion into fishing, but most of us do not have a fish cleaning station that we are proud of. Many of us are suffering from dock dysfunction. A rod and table with rusty metal, this is just no good. But the dock enhancement that we've all been waiting for is finally here. Killer Doc uses marine-grade aluminum to make fabulous fish cleaning tables and stunning canopies that will keep us out of the sun. Killer Doc combines durability, function, and design to uniquely upgrade your entire dock experience. Visit killerdoc.com to see more. And also brought to you by Foster Contracting, Fortified Roofing Pros. Do you need a new roof? Do you have wind or hail damage? You may qualify for a free roof. Foster Contracting will inspect and provide you with an estimate, stress-free, and they will handle your claim with your insurance. Your roof is your first line of defense this storm season. Sit back, relax, and enjoy your day. Foster Contracting has you covered. Check them out at www.fortifiedroofingpros.com or give them a shout at 251-447-2978. All right, gentlemen, we cannot get out of here without what did you learn? What'd you learn, Dylan?
Man, I learned a lot today and my first time co-hosting, but something that Captain Bobby said really, really stood out to me. The one thing about knowing your water and what you're fishing in, I felt like was really good. But then the color thing that he talked about, it's a mistake I think I make myself a lot. I have a color of the slick called the Go Ghost that I really like to throw. It's probably my favorite, probably close to the root beer color. And, if the water's not right for it or whatever and it's not working real well, I'll make a subtle change to something that's still kind of clear-bodied or whatever when I really should be probably making a change to something it's much brighter, on the very
Bigger
other
contrast.
end. You think about, if something's not hitting or you're not working, you make a big move or whatever in terms of the water that you're fishing when you really could make a big move in just the lures that you're throwing and the colors that you're presenting to these fish. And I just felt like that was some really, really cool information and something that I don't really think about, a mistake that I make. That was gold right there.
Yeah. When it comes to the whole color thing, for me, it's either a bright color or it's a dark color. I guess my train of thought most times will say is match the conditions. You know what I'm saying? If you got a bluebird day, big sky, clear water, I'm throwing real light color baits. If you're the opposite, you're going to throw dark color baits. It does not always play out that way, but you definitely need to present it both ways. I know I've been fishing like dirty Mobile
That's what
River.
Captain Bobby was just saying.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense whenever he was fishing chartreuse versus root beer and vice versa. Sometimes it just happens that way.
And you just need to be versatile in that approach. If you feel good about an area, especially this time of year when you're fishing, we're about to be like exclusively deep water fishing. Pay attention to your electronics. If you feel like there's fish in the area and you're not getting bit on chartreuse, switch over and throw dark. You know what I mean? Or opening night or something like that. But I've done it the opposite way too, like where I've been fishing like dirty Mobile River water and I've been throwing like an opening night color, you know what I mean? And don't ask me why that works because it's a bright color, but it's also a real translucent color too. It could almost look more like a silhouette of something down there versus being something dark, like if you had like a cloudy day.
Yeah, I feel like Cool Beans is very versatile like that as well.
It can be, for sure. And I like I said, it doesn't always make sense why they're eating the color they're eating given the conditions, but I definitely think it definitely behooves you to have 2 different colors tied on. Like pick up cool beans and make 5 or 8 casts with cool beans. You don't get a bite, switch over to Goblin or to Mad Mullet or something dark, and
especially if you have
tuxedo,
confidence in your location. I think that's a big part of what.
And then throw that and see, kind of see what to start to hit on. I tell you, the one thing that kind of irritates, I think, my clients about me a lot of times is like when we get out there and we get going, and I'll catch a fish or 2 on a certain color, and everybody's like, "Hey, what color are you throwing over there, Capt?" I'm like, "I don't know, man. Just keep throwing what you're throwing until something really kind of starts to make sense, So something starts to jump off the page at you. You know what I mean? Like where
1 or 2 is not a dead set.
That's right.
Just could be an anomaly.
Yeah. And if they're like kind of far apart from each other bites kind of deal, versus if I'm throwing in there and I'm getting bit every cast.
Probably onto something.
And some days it doesn't matter what color you're throwing.
No,
for sure. It's the profile of the bait that's working for you. But then other days it really does matter what color you're throwing. And you don't really know exactly what the color you're presenting to these fish looks like at depth, because the water, you get these thermoclines and these haloclines, and where the water looks different or is different, quality at different depths. And so if the fish are, closer to the bottom and you get into that other water, it's different color, different
Yeah,
look.
hey, Dylan,
that's a great point.
Being Mr. Scientist running these ROVs offshore and everything, what color do red snapper look like down 60 feet?
They're gray.
Yeah,
red doesn't go past 60 foot. So.
I mean, you're dealing with that as well, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You start sinking these things down like
30 or 40 feet, especially like in the Mobile River or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I've been criticized by some of my clients sometimes about like my jig heads, right? Like I only throw lead colored jig heads. I don't think the color of the jig head matters at all. Now, when I was a kid, just because I caught a lot of fish on red jig heads, you know what I mean? The red H&H jig heads you used to get when you were a kid. Yeah, that was all there was, But now I really don't think the color of lead has anything to do with it. It's more of the profile and shade and silhouette of what you're throwing makes a lot of sense. Makes much more sense than the fine tuning that color. It's either light or dark. You know what I mean? It's to me.
Sometimes the fishermen bite the lure more than the fish do. I'm guilty of that.
Hey, well, I can attest to that because I'll never forget. About right when the slick lure started to come around, and I was talking to Uncle Joey. Uncle Joey was telling, I don't remember if it was Uncle Joe or somebody. I think it was Uncle Joe was telling me, man, the thing about selling lures, you got to catch the fishermen before they catch the fish. Kind of. It's got to look sexy in the box, the box of the package before.
You try to hook the fisherman with the lure before you catch a fish on it.
But yeah, I like that, Dylan. I like that a lot. As far as making sure you're versatile. Then I know that's something I do day in, day out, and making sure you're not missing anything. You want to leave no stones unturned.
Exactly. Before you make that big move in terms of changing the water you're fishing, make sure that you're presenting everything that they could possibly be going for. And if it's not working, then make your big move and then do the same thing. Give them a couple looks. See what they're keyed in on.
Yeah, and especially coming this time of year too, we're about to hit kind of a period like I was kind of talking about a little earlier in the report. You have some fish that are still in shallow water, and fish that are transitioning. You're starting to get into deep water. Sometimes there's fish suspending, whatnot, and that's something I'll take note of. I'll make a cast. I'll click the reeling gear, and I sit there and hold my rod tip until my grub hits the bottom. And sometimes you get bit before it hits the bottom, then you're like, "Ooh, hey, they're not on the bottom. They're up off the bottom. I need to either tie a lighter jig head on, or I need to go versus a jig versus a slick or something like that. Just
suspending twitch bait to get up in that water column.
A couple of weeks ago when me and you were fishing together, and we're throwing the slicks, and I noticed after about 30 minutes of fishing, when I started working my slick really close to the surface, I'm talking as soon as it hit the water, I started popping, and I wouldn't let it sink more than a second. I was getting a lot more bites that particular day than I would if I let it sink a couple seconds. I was working the mid-water column. I wasn't getting any bites. And then working towards – those trout were looking up that day, and that's not the case every day. Some days they're looking down, or some days it doesn't matter. They're everywhere, but
that's
definitely,
I feel like a broken record on here sometimes.
Gotta mix your looks up. I mean, it's just like sports, a baseball or whatever, you know?
Well, yeah, I was going to say, I feel like a broken record a lot of times when I say, man, pay attention to what you're doing when you have, when you're doing it, when you get those bites, what was going on.
Was it a fast cadence? Was it a slow cadence?
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's going to be different every day.
Yep.
It's wild. I mean,
it is, man.
So long story short, we're stupid and the fish win again.
they beat me almost every time.
Yep.
Unless it's a flounder.
Man, they are smart, man. I tell you, it's
crafty little critters.
They are crafty. And that's what's fun. I was listening to the Speckled Truth podcast while I was traveling over the holidays, and this guy David Rousey that we're listening to, he was talking about like kind of his favorite thing that kind of keeps him engaged in fishing is tricking the fish. You know what I mean? Like getting the bite. That's
why artificial is so much fun.
That's exactly. That's what's so addicting about it. Is just tricking those fish and getting that bite. You know what I mean? I just soon get the bite, set the hook, and hand the rod off to a customer or a kid or somebody. That's just the fun part about it to me, and what just tickles me about the wintertime. People will the wintertime for me as a guy is not like a real busy time taking a lot of folks fishing, but it's just, for me it's like Christmas. I love the wintertime because of that. You can just pretty much exclusively get on plastic,
figure out what they're keying in on, and go to town.
Yeah, whether you're like doing like a kind of a shrimp imitation thing while you're bouncing a grub along, or like Captain Bobby was talking about, like this water's going to cool off good and get all this bait out of here, and then the fish are going to get more. What we're going to start to transition into here in the next several weeks as it cools off, is they're going to come off of that shrimp diet and start to kind of get more on a fin fish.
Captain Bobby dropped a lot of knowledge on us today, and
that
was another thing I picked up on too. Is with like trout and redfish, when they key in on something, like they're really keyed in on it. Like they're not keyed in on the fin fish just yet. They're waiting on these shrimp to get out of here. With flounder, I've actually noticed it's quite different. Like if they're keyed in on something and you present them something a little different, they'll actually kind of lean towards that. And I saw that when I was shore fishing in the middle of October with my buddy Chris. He can't see very well, so if he breaks off and he has to retie, it takes a lot of time. So if it's happening a lot, you know how it is with the flounder fish when we get stuck. And so he put on a voodoo shrimp under a popping cork, and when we were in this hot flounder bite, and 5 casts in a row he got a flounder.
Man.
On a voodoo popping cork. While I was bouncing grub, I was getting good bites, catching a lot of fish, but they wanted that shrimp, and there was a ton of mullet around too. So that's definitely what they were keyed in on, was the fin fish. But as soon as they saw a shrimp or something different, they were on it. Like they're like, I want that. The flounder are gluttons.
No, yeah.
They're not as picky as your trouts and your redfish. They'll eat more.
Oh yeah.
All right, guys, that wraps up another great segment. Let's take a quick break. Check out a few more of this week's sponsors. That segment was brought to you by Sam's Stop and Shop. Sam's Stop and Shop is your one-stop shop located at 27122 Canal Road in Orange Beach, Alabama. Sam's has a little bit of everything, including a deli, inshore, offshore, and surf fishing tackle. They also have bait, clothing, groceries, name brand sunglasses, and so much more. Sam's also has tackle experts and podcast contributors Chris Veche and Dusty Hayes on hand to answer any questions you may have about any type of local fishing, and can also repair your rods and reels if necessary. Stop by and shop or call them at 251-981-4245 today. Gentlemen, it was a pleasure.
Man, I'm sad it's over. I want to keep talking about fishing.
Yeah, that was a pretty good show. Thanks, Dylan. Appreciate your knowledge, man.
Do I have to go home now?
Yeah, no, you can stay here. Got plenty of room.
Hey, man, the striped bass are under the lights.
That's right. Speckled trout just about to start hitting.
Heck yeah, it's fishing time.
It is. It's time to get on it.
I got the rods in the truck.
That's right.
Hey, see y'all later. I'm out of here.
Well, Captain Richard, we appreciate you being on, man. If folks want to get up with you and book an inshore or an offshore trip, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Man, cold-blooded fishing, any which way you want it, kind of like Captain Bobby. Instagram, Facebook, internet, however you want it, man.
Appreciate you guys co-hosting with me.
Thank you, man. We're here. I'm glad to be here.
All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up this week. You guys please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like us to email you the podcast each week, just text the word fishing to 314-665-1767. Again, just text the word fishing to 314-665-1767. Subscribe to our email list, and we'll send y'all the new show each week. You guys have a safe week. Keep whacking them. Talk to y'all next week. This Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report was brought to you by BoatersList.com. If you own or run a boat, you know how difficult it can be to find the right company for the task at hand. Sign up at boaterslist.com to find a company to work with on your next boat project. And also brought to you by Test Calibration. Test Calibration is your source for sales and service of diesel turbochargers and fuel injection systems since 1976. Contact them at 800-822-0057 or visit them online at testcalibratondieselandturbo.com. And also by MB Ranch King hunting blinds and feeders are built to last right here in the USA. They offer high quality, easy to use corn and protein feeders that can be filled with both feet on the ground. Call Kevin today for more info or a quote at 205-807-2937. MB Ranch King, built in the pursuit of perfection.
This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report brought to you by me, Angelo DePaola, The Coastal Connection. Find us online at thecoastalconnection.com.
And also brought to you by Advanced Transmission in Spanish Fort. Give the professionals a call who have been trusted on the Gulf Coast for over 25 years at 251-626-6061 or check them out online at www.advanced-transmission.com. And also brought to you by the Alabama Marine Resources Division. The Alabama Marine Resources Division reminds all recreational anglers that gray triggerfish, greater amberjack, or red snapper must be reported through Snapper Check prior to landing the fish in Alabama. For more information about Snapper Check, please visit outdooralabama.com. And also brought to you by Bucks Island. They have new pontoon boats, bass boats, bow riders, and aluminum boats for sale. They provide boat service on all kinds of boats, even if they weren't purchased from Bucks. Visit them at 4500 Highway 77 in Southside, Alabama, or give them a call at 256-442-2588. And also brought to you by Mustad Fishing. 1 in 4 hooks in the world is made by Mustad Fishing. See why they're the best-selling hook brand. Enjoy 25% off your next order at mustad-fishing.com by using code GREATDAYS at checkout.